Hello everyone, welcome back to the KMTRADERS channel. So this is the full market analysis volume 62. Again, we're just going to be giving you an insight of what we're going to be looking into for this week, and we're going to review our analysis from last week. So starting off, we're actually going to leave gold and Euro USD for tomorrow. We're going to talk about that in just a little bit more detail. But without further ado, we'll start off with NZD USD. So for this pair, what I'm looking out for is more of this continuation move towards the downside, which we spoke about last week. I believe price action was around this area here. So what we have seen here is that price was rejecting off this zone here at 0.726, and it was capable enough to push its way to the downside. So now that we can see prices, moving in our direction now, we can see price breaking our uptrend. We could potentially see more of this continuation lower and lower. So what we're going to be keeping an eye out for now is to see if we can catch this momentum towards the downside. But for this to be certainly valid that price is pushing lower, we need to break some of these structures to the downside, potentially into 0.71 and to hit our zone here. So with this sort of level of price action right now, we could see that it is quite choppy behavior. So for now, that's why I want to just stay patient for now and really see what happens. So we could expect price to break lower and then retrace higher. And this could be a counter trade move that you could consider. Excuse me. We could be looking into that position. If you really did understand when to take that trade, then so be it. But just understand that this isn't exactly going to be a lot of pips. So if price does come and reject the 0.71, this is about 70 odd pips or so to a 200 pip range. That's if price does manage to push higher also. So yeah, one thing that we could be anticipating really is a push towards the downside, potential rejection here, or at some place we could expect price to reject at the 0.71, or it could be an even deeper push lower. So it doesn't have to necessarily be at 0.71, but that could be the move for the week. But where we are looking to anticipate for the the long run is for price to retrace somewhere and then push lower to potentially come into 0.69 and even further lower. So for now, that's something that we could be expecting. This isn't a definite move that we could be looking into, but this is a potential counter trade trade that we can take. But the main bias for me is to take our way to the downside. So that's still the main bias for myself and where I want to see price turn over to. So yeah, let's take a look at AUDUSD. So this one has also been pretty much doing a similar thing here, where we were looking for price to push just a little bit higher, but we never actually managed to get that. So what we could expect is for price to potentially push higher, and it really just depends if we're going to see one more move towards the upside, or if we're actually going to see price dip down, and if it can push lower. So if it does do that, then this could be a nice continuation trade, and this could be a nice move towards the downside if you wanted to take that trade. It would be considered more of a momentum trade, so you just have to be careful with that. So don't expect your price to fully all the way push into 0.75. Just be curious to where price can go. So yeah, that will be that for that pair. So yeah, essentially we're still anticipating sell, so that's the main bias here. I'm personally going to see in this area if we can get a break towards the upside and then push lower. That is a considerable option. Or the other option is that price is capable of leaving from this point onwards, and we could see price just absolutely catapult towards the downside and push into 0.75. So that is a potential consideration there. So moving on to UJ. Let's take a look at this one. So my bias for this is I was thinking price could actually push a lot higher than what we spoke about last week, but judging from last week, or how this week has been played, we can see price has just been slowly pushing lower. So for me, I am suspecting that we could see price just push higher. And as we did speak from last week, if I could remind myself, is that I was potentially considering both sides of the story here, and I was considering a sell opportunity. So what we could see here is price push up into this level here and then push lower into 107.5 or even 107. So that is something that we could be keeping an eye out for. But I think with price moving sideways very strongly here, well, price isn't really moving really rapidly higher, is it? It's really, in a much more descending channel and moving sideways. So what I am keeping a concern on is this break of this uptrend here. We could see a potential break. This could potentially be a fake out, as we're seeing some rejections here. The EMA is not really too convincing here. So we're just going to have to stay patient and wait it out. But I do think that this is a potential probability where price could push higher and then make its way towards the downside to clear into 107 as that potential push. So if we do get something like that, that could be a good 250 plus pips. Also, if you did want to take that counter move, that's a good 80 pips. So just be mindful of that and the plays here, but we'll keep an eye on for those moves over in the week. So taking a look into CADJPY. This one actually looks quite messy, but the main idea that we were looking at last week was a potential push lower. I believe I had in my notes somewhere that we could potentially see this turnover towards the downside now. And I'm convinced that this is a possibility right now. So all we're going to do now is simply just see if we can take on some sells. I'm happy to think that this is a potential, there is a potential push lower. We're just going to have to stay patient for this one. We've got a break of our uptrend with the EMAs are slightly converging over. We do have our divergence forming here. It's a very strong one here, so you can see there's multiple peaks going lower and lower as price action is pushing higher and higher. So there is that definite sign of weakness towards the upside, which is quite probable that we could be seeing a turnover here. So I'm going to put some thought into this process over the next few days or so and see if we can capture this move towards the downside. And we could be looking into the first target being 85.5 or even 85 flat. So all the way down here, this one could be a very big one from price action for where it is now and to where we could be looking into is just around 500 pips. So it's up to you if you do want to hold on to this trade, but I wouldn't consider doing so. Like I always say, make sure you lock in and secure some profit so that you cover yourself in case price action does turn over. So taking a look into EJ, so similar situation here with EJ. I am looking for price to actually make its way to the downside as well. I believe we did have this channel formed here, so we've got this area and this space to kind of work with. So that's kind of my process of thought right now. I do see that price is stepping down ever so slightly, but is this going to be the real push lower, or are we going to get one more push higher? And that's something that we just have to wait for and see. And then if we can get a push lower with some good strength, then I would be confident to look for some selling opportunities. So for now, I'm not really anticipating too much of a sell bias just yet. I want to be completely convinced that we are pushing lower. Again, we do have this divergence forming, so like I said, there is a possibility that we could be in a process of pushing lower. Again, you just have to be careful of what the market is telling you and the area that we're looking into. So for now, we can see if we extend our our range of the area. We can see we're pushing lower we're digging into this uptrend right now. So this could be a potential fake out. I'm convinced that this could be a potential fake out. So that's why I'm looking at a potential upside. So the other scenario is that we get a break, and a strong break, and we don't get a push higher. So if that does happen, that's fine. That's even a better move for us, because if we can get that, all we have to do is just wait for a retest and push lower. Again, this is this is probably the easiest part of of a trade, is to not pick the tops, is to wait for that retesting moment. And if we get rid of this, and we could be looking to target these areas here, so 129.5, which is a very long way down. But yeah, we'll see how that one performs over the next few days or so too. So taking a look at AJ, so if we have a look into this one as well, we can see price is pushing higher and higher. We do have this uptrend being formed. We do have the break of the downtrend also. So that is convincing to me that we could be pushing lower. Again, I want to make sure that we cover both aspects of the upside and downside opportunity. So in order for you to minimize your risk, you want to obviously take the better positions. So like I said, that there is one option where we just get that retrace within this area, and we start to see price melt towards the downside. Oops. So we start to see something like this, and we could be anticipating price to reach 75.5 all the way down here, which we were talking about for quite a long time now. And the other option and the other scenario is that we get a bit of a break towards the upside. So we start to see some Aussie dollar strength, the Aussie strengthening against the Japanese yen, and then we start to see that manipulation where we start to see price bolts towards the downside. And if we do see that, then that isn't necessarily the best time to get in. Like I always say, you don't have to beat the gun. You just have to stay patient and just wait for price to do its thing, and let the market show its cards first before you take action. So that's pretty much the process I'm looking at with AJ over the next few days. Coming into the last two pairs now. So, oops, sorry, did I talk about AJ? Sorry, New Zealand dollar to the Japanese yen. So that's my thought processes with New Zealand dollar to the Japanese yen. So if we get that similar process as what I was talking about, is that if we get strength in the New Zealand dollar, yeah, we get the push up and then we get the break lower. If not, we'll get that push lower. So now we'll talk about the AJ. So as we can see here, price is pushing up. So what I am anticipating is for price to pretty much do a similar story, where we see price either retrace just a little bit, or we'll get a break towards the upside. So I'm keeping both options very similar and very key in mind. I don't want to rush into this one, so like I always say, it's better to get in when when you're more convinced, so adding up all the pros and cons, etc. So yeah, 81 or 82 flat, that could be a story or one to pick. The other one is 82, so that's definitely one thing we could look into too. So moving on to the last two pairs now, as we spoke about, USDCHF. So we're looking for this push towards the upside. Again, we did think that this was happening last week, and we failed to see that. So now we could potentially see price do it again. We just have to wait. So we spoke about this last week, where price would push lower and then break up. So as we can see, price has managed to do that. Well, I don't think I actually did properly mention that, but we can see price has broken this low, and we could potentially see a rise up. So if we do see that rise up, this could be the end of this bearish cycle. We could see a temporary push towards the upside, and we can capitalize on that. So that's pretty much the ideology of this. We do have some divergence, I believe, here, very strong here, very deep there. So that's something that you can look into too. USDCAD, that's the final pair for today. So on the similar note with this, we could be expecting price for this. I'm actually looking for price to push just a bit lower before we actually get this move. Convinced that we could be looking at more bearish pressure to take out this low, to potentially come into 1.2 before we get that rally towards the upside. So I wouldn't be surprised if price does something like that in that nature. But like I always say, you know, if price does rally up, you know, that's still the bias that you can consider taking, and that's the main bias, is to take a buy position. So again, that'll be pretty much it for this week. If you haven't done already, we have actually made a new addition to our weekly analysis, and it's the cryptos. So again, we are looking into Bitcoin, Ripple, Cardano, Litecoin, Ethereum, Dogecoin. I believe that's all the ones that we're covering. And yeah, so yeah, they're going to be an addition. We made a crypto video update for you, so go ahead and watch that just to fill you in more details. But again, if you made it all the way to the end of the video, I do appreciate your time for watching. If you have any other questions, feel free to let me know. Happy to help. You know, just leave your comments in the comment section below. And that will be all from us. So thank you very much for listening, guys, and we'll see you all in our next video.